Hi class, Micah Russell here. I am very pleased to welcome you to NRS 411, Environmental Project Management and Decision Making. This short lecture will just be an opportunity for me to introduce the goals of this course and give you some heads up on what we'll be studying the rest of the term. In the following lectures, we'll get into the heart of the course material. So let's talk about project management and why we think this is such a useful endeavor for you as you get ready to launch your careers or move on to additional schooling. Project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to specific activities that meet the goals of some stakeholder. Basically, what this means is we're going to teach you the skills you need to take charge of a project from beginning to end and get something done on the ground. It's really a practical skills course. This is not so much a deep dive into project management theory. We will do a little bit of that, but it is rather a course that we hope will give you confidence when you enter a new job, a new workplace, and they hand you a file and say, hey, we've got this project, it's yours now. We're hoping that you will feel much more comfortable taking leadership in that situation and working within project teams to get things done. This course was designed in response to feedback from University of Idaho stakeholders, particularly those in industry, be it a private logging firm or a federal agency, you name it. There was feedback filtering back to the university that suggested while our students are well prepared to do research and well grounded in theory, they could use more in terms of career prep. So again, that's our primary goal here. But even then, we have to focus the course around something because project management in itself is a massive topic. Of course, there are project managers in software development. There are project managers in artist studios. There are project managers everywhere doing all kinds of work. But we are going to focus our course on ecosystem restoration, in part because we find that many of our graduates are doing that kind of work. And also, this is my background and what I'm most comfortable teaching through. So even if you don't pursue ecosystem restoration as a career, I hope that you'll find it interesting nonetheless. And I guarantee that the skills we practice here will translate nicely to other endeavors. Okay, so a little bit of discussion about how this course is organized. You probably already know this, but we have two options. Excuse me as my emails come up. We have an online course, which is just 2 credits. And if that's all you're doing, no problem. I think you'll still get a lot out of it. And then we have the full 4-credit combo, which combines the online material and the ground course. And let me distinguish between those two. The online course, you're primarily going to be working your way through reading quizzes, lecture quizzes, activities based on the lecture, some discussion posts, and some activities that I assign that allow you to get into more depth with the content. It will really be a good dose of project management and ecosystem restoration topics both. But it will be somewhat limited in the sense that we will not be able to take you in the field. We will not be able to do group work as effectively. So those of you in the full course here on the Moscow campus, you'll be doing all the online content, but you will also be doing some assignments individually and in small groups under different leadership, which will really help cement the concepts we learn online. And furthermore, you're going to get the opportunity to design some restoration in the local community And I find that that's where the learning we've done really gels, where it really becomes apparent how useful these techniques are, is when you get to actually take charge of a project in your local community. So regardless, welcome to all of you, whether or not you're in the full course or the short course. We're very glad to have you here. For more specifics on the course materials, the course textbook, the course grading, of course, please refer to your syllabus. All right, so who's teaching this? Well, obviously you've already met me, Micah Russell. I am a PhD student in the Water Resources program here at UI. I am coming at this from several years' experience working in ecosystem restoration in the lower Columbia River. And I've also taught at a college in Florida. I recently came back to school because I wanted to advance my prospects in academia. So that's a little bit about me. I'll go into more detail in a moment. If you're taking the full course, you'll be supervised by Dr. Stephen Daly Larson. He and I have co-taught this course before, and he will shepherd you through the group activities and the field trips and such. And I will join as frequently as possible, although my role is going to be somewhat limited to the online material. So like I said, I have some experience doing ecosystem restoration, and more specifically, I was the director of the Columbia River Estuary Study Task Force. So many of the case studies and examples I use will be from this geography. We worked on wetland restoration, floodplain, and river restoration projects up and down the lower Columbia. So the lower 150 miles of the river were our domain, both Oregon and Washington. And those were large, exciting projects. As you'll learn as you work your way through this course, there's a lot involved, everything from engineering to construction to budgeting to time management to effective communication. This job is really where I honed those skills and became confident in the project management world. So I'm very happy to reflect on those experiences and use those as examples that I hope you can relate to. Okay, so this course is really designed in two modules. Module 1 is all about project planning. So before you ever turn the dirt with a shovel or a backhoe, you've got to do a lot of planning. And this is our workflow for this course. We're going to start by talking about some project management fundamentals. We'll look at some case studies so you can see some of my experience doing project management on the ground. We'll talk about project development. So this is the early stages of the project where you're just beginning to work with landowners and community members to conceptualize what's possible, and you take some early steps towards putting that on paper. Site analysis. So this is when you've identified a project site and you start to assess its ecosystem restoration potential, both its potential and its constraints. So what works there and what doesn't work there. And that's a really important step before you ever go any further. We will talk about different project design approaches, different philosophies of design, and what's appropriate and what's not at a given site. We'll get into scheduling, a really essential skill set for project managers. We'll look at project plans and construction specs, all the documentation that's expected of you when you're a project manager. We'll look at budgeting and financial management. This is not a small part of what you do as a project manager, is not only dealing with the fun stuff, all the different project design elements, but also making sure that you can secure funding and manage it appropriately to meet everyone's expectations. And then project prioritization. So let's say you have a number of project ideas. Which ones rise to the top and why? How do you decide what to move forward and what not to move forward? We'll have a look at that as well. After spring break, we'll move into Module 2, Project Implementation. So this is where you've done all your planning, you've got all your ducks in a row, it's time to build it. Well, an important piece of that is working well with landowners. Of course, that's essential throughout the entire life cycle of a project from beginning to end. But I think it's worth revisiting as we talk about implementation. We will back up a little bit and get some basics of wetland restoration under our belts, um, just so that when we start looking at case studies or when the ground course starts designing projects in the community, that we all have a good foundation in wetland restoration. And then we'll look at implementation oversight and aftercare. So a project manager does oversee construction or implementation of projects, and then oversees all the activities after the project's done. So you continue to monitor and evaluate the success of a project. And not only will I lecture on that content, but we'll invite some guests in to provide some additional case studies and examples related to implementation and monitoring. All right. So here's some goals for the course. Just big picture goals. We're going to get grounded in theory and best practices, both in terms of project management and restoration and conservation. Next, we're going to get some exposure to professional project managers in a variety of settings. If you're in the online course, you'll get this primarily through guest lectures. If you're in the ground course, you will also be introduced to folks in the local community as you join them on field trips. Okay, next we will get some hands-on practice and build a marketable skill set. So you will be able to put some of this course content on your resume or CV after all is said and done. I think it will really boost your prospects going forward. But you can't do that without some sufficient practice of all the things we're talking about. And we will provide opportunities for practice in the online material as well as the ground material. And finally, especially for those of you working on group projects, you'll get comfortable leading a project and being a team member and knowing when to move back and forth between those roles. All right, so these are some of the folks we've had participate in the course before locally. We've had PCEI, the Nez Perce Tribe, the Palouse Land Trust, the conservation districts, we have a couple of them in this area, and Fish and Wildlife. You will probably encounter some of these folks during the course, not necessarily all of them, depending on their schedules, but it is a rich community of professionals who have a lot to share with you. Now, drawing on my background in the Lower Columbia, we're also going to have some guest lectures from folks down there. So we'll have folks from Crest who are still working there. We'll have folks from Columbia Land Trust, another organization I worked really closely with. We may have folks from these other groups as well. Definitely USGS, maybe the Nature Conservancy. We'll just see what we can get scheduled. But these are some of the associations I have that I would like to take advantage of in delivering the content. So that's it for now. I'm really excited to get started, and all of your weekly assignments for the online material will be laid out in front of you. You just need to click on each week's folder and do the work, and refer to the syllabus with respect to our course policies. I look forward to communicating with you and seeing the results of your work, and let's get started real soon. Thanks so much for your attention. See you next time.